We're back for our second Ask Jon Anik Anything. My name is Jason Anik. That's my twin brother there. What up, John?
Hey, I'm trying to figure out how to go live on Instagram. I figured it out last week.
Yeah? Well, you'll figure it out. It's good to see you, man.
What's going on? We're here in Los Angeles. How we doing?
So you can work on that IG thing. It's good to see you, man. So fresh back from Hawaii. I mean, it must be unbelievable just trying to bounce through these time zones and sleep. It's like, when you're in Hawaii, I'm hearing from you at like 4 a.m. Hawaii time.
6-hour time difference is wild, trying to get on that time zone for a little bit. But what an amazing job by Max Holloway and the UFC, the Max Holloway Foundation, doing so much for the youths in Hawaii and West Side Striking, raising so much money in terms of the annual budget for that school and just seeing all the kids. All right, I got to hit go live here.
Hit it.
Live video.
While you're doing that, I'll just let everyone know what we got going on here. So basically, head over to YouTube, those that are on IG or those that are, we'll get to those IG folks, but send your questions via YouTube. John will be answering them. And tonight, little special treat for you, whichever question we like the most, will be the recipient of this fine Charles Oliveira fighter card. There's the focus on that camera. This is from UFC 300, as you see on the top of the card. So that was actually the last time he faced Arman Tsarukyan. Little rumors that potentially they'll be facing at UFC 331. I don't know if I'd like to see that as maybe the next spot. Either way, I gotta want to see Tsarukyan fight for the belt. But anyway, first I wanted to say to you, right? Nomar Garciaparra, right? We're from Boston, right? Turned 53 years old today, right? And the Red Sox just finished their 15-game winning streak. They lost last night, but Nomar hadn't tweeted in 5 years, John. And he tweets out just how much love he has for Boston. Hadn't tweeted in 5 years.
Yeah. Interesting relationship with X. You're not getting on there for the first time in a half decade. I actually saw him on TV last night.
Yeah? How'd he look?
Well, better than us.
Really? That beak. He's got that big beak, though. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Yeah.
So we're going to get to some questions here. Appreciate you all being with us. Drop your questions on YouTube. We'll get going over here.
It was so easy to go on Instagram Live last week, and we're not able to do that this week. I'm doing everything I think, create live video, audience, public, not working. Anyway, we do, if you happen to be watching on Instagram and somehow that's actually fucking working, you can go over to YouTube where we can actually feature you guys.
So speaking of brothers, right, and as we sort of get some of these questions populated here, I see some popping up now, but I just have to talk about the Topuria brothers, right? Rumors about UFC 331, and there was a rumor that Alexander Topuria is going to potentially fight Bryce Mitchell, which is a former opponent of his brother Ilya. Ilya submitted him back in 2022. But I'm just curious if you know this, that the Topuria brothers are born 364 days apart. So literally, Ilya, who's his younger brother, right? Alexander has literally given his whole MMA fighting career. He just put it all on hold for Ilya, who was born one day before Alexander's first birthday, which I just think is incredible. And I think it's fascinating sort of how everything played out with Ilya's career and obviously the fight at the White House, that now maybe his brother gets a little shine against Bryce Mitchell.
Yeah, it's funny. It seems like his brother wants anything but shine. And to say that he's been wholly devoted to Ilya in his career doesn't even begin to describe the commitment and the nature of their relationship and the extent to which he's put his career on the back burner. But yeah, I mean, I've called Ilya Topuria a mental giant, and I know that quote has been repurposed, but they both are such intellectuals and both are so married to the game. And yeah, I think it'll be nice to see the brother who is 1 year older, right?
Yep.
1 year older. Yeah.
1 year, 364 days. Yeah, exactly.
Same mom and dad. Same mom and dad.
Oh, phenomenal question. See, John, right? That is something that would be a good thing to bring up, while he's fighting, right? You could ask that question while he's fighting, right? And then get the haters coming out for you. So you're in LA right now. And I feel like a lot of MMA folks don't necessarily love California. I love California. Met my wife out in LA. So a little time out there. What can you tell us, if anything, about what the heck you're doing out on the Best Coast before we get you back here and off to Serbia?
Oh, I can't tell you anything about what I'm doing, but I'm very excited to be here for a quick pit stop. And then, yes, we were going to Serbia. And I got to say, man, I did not have the UFC generated pronunciations in one email when I sat down to voice the Serbia show today. And there are so many newcomers and so many Serbian fighters. It took me hours on the internet, on YouTube, to find those pronunciations. Some of the pronunciations came later in the day, but we got a lot of newcomers, a lot of Serbian fighters. And I just think, and I know promotionally, I work for the company, so however this lands, it's going to land. But I just think there are a lot of exciting stylists that we're going to feature in Serbia, and it's rare for me to get an international UFC fight night, and I leaned in today, so I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, so the big show goes to Abu Dhabi and then to Serbia. One name you didn't have to do much research on was the second preliminary bout of the night, Milos Janicic, right? Called me for that one. Dirty boxing fighter who is making the jump over to the UFC. I can't wait for him to make his debut. Montenegro's own. Dude has a huge following, can really fight. I'm excited for you to see him fight and sort of meet him. I've gotten to know him well. And I've said, you know, we get the opportunity in some of these smaller promotions. You have great relationships with the fighters. It can be even more intimate sometimes with these smaller promotions because there's just so much crossover. So anyway, appreciate you all being with us. Don't be afraid to go over to YouTube if you're not already there.
I'm still trying to fucking handle this Instagram bullshit. No, I'm fucking pissed, actually. I'm going to create. I'm doing all the live things. This is bullshit, man.
Well,
public.
Hey.
You know, it won't let me go live. It won't let me click. So I don't know if you want to fucking log in.
Hey, well, I can maybe try, but man. No, well, it's all good. But what I'll say is those that are on YouTube, we appreciate you. It is a new channel, Anik Bros. And, you know, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. And we're going to be bringing a lot of behind the scenes content. I'm going to switch from Boston Anik to Jon Anik on my Instagram. Every time I do that on my laptop, it explodes. You know, not a lot of activity on Boston Anik, but Jon Anik on Instagram. A lot of moving parts there. All right, we're going to try and go live for you. Create live video. Ask me anything. We're going to go public. Are we not? Let's go. I can get this done for you. And while I'm doing this, while I'm trying to do this, yeah, it doesn't want to go. It doesn't want to go live. Well, I can maybe hit go live, but either way, I'm going to get you a question going here. If you don't mind, Johnny.
Yeah. What do you got?
All right, here we go. At story of the fight outside of the big marquee events, White House, Sphere, Noche, etc. Which fight moments still grips your mind as truly special in your heart?
Probably Rose Namajunas and that Madison Square Garden card in which 3 championship belts changed hands. I think that's the live event that first comes to mind. I guess that would qualify as a big marquee event, but I really do believe that a good retrospective would be to go year by year, really, since, I don't know, whenever the modern era began. And I think you could probably find 1 or 2 major consequential things every single year. You know, I remember in 2013, and I think we referenced this maybe last week, maybe not, but the year of Vitor Belfort, the year in which he knocked out Dan Henderson, Michael Bisping, and Luke Rockhold successively in Brazil in front of some of the most raucous crowds in UFC history. UFC Fight Pass has all of those fights. And yeah, I mean, you'll hear how high my voice is back then. You'll hear how festive the atmosphere was at that time when we were doing 6 shows a year in Brazil. It's just crazy, the evolution of the UFC schedule and where we've done shows. And yeah, you sort of keep your head down and feet on the pavement, working hard, and you don't sort of look up and think about everything that you've done, whether it's Fight Island or the global pandemic. But there have been a lot of, yeah, I mean, we could talk for an hour about the events that we did coming out of the pandemic in Jacksonville. Just crazy.
A lot of good questions coming in. Best question of the night does get John's fighter card from Charles Oliveira. His appearance at UFC 300, the OG, the original card right here. I got some other cards here, bro. I got some nice cards here. I got a Khabib Nurmagomedov card here as well. So, you know, you talk about Brazil, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here because you said you've been there like 30 times. Do you remember when the last time you were there? It feels like it's been a minute.
Well, we do at least one live event every year or so, or 18 months or so. So, no, we had a numbered event there not all that long ago, but I would imagine we would be back there in the next 12 months. And, you know, I don't know that we've had Alex Pineda fight there. It'd be great to see Charles Oliveira fight there again. But, yeah, we did a numbered event there fairly recently.
All right. So we're going to get off MMA for a quick second. Just got to. If you had to rank an order of desire, the 4 major sports teams in Boston based on how much you want them to win a title next, how would that look? That's a great question.
Well, the Boston Celtics would be number 1 just because of my friendship with Joe Mazzulla. I would say the Boston Red Sox would be number 2 because I think Major League Baseball in that town will always just be front and center, even if Fenway doesn't sell out. And I just think the rivalry with the New York Yankees will always elevate the Boston Red Sox emotions in my mind. So I'll go Celtics 1, Red Sox 2, hockey's always 4. So New England Patriots will be number 3, but I do not believe that Drake May, as much as I like him as an individual player, I don't believe he'll play in another Super Bowl before his career is all said and done. We'll see.
Oh, the hot take from Jon Anik, right? 15 years, Drake May is not going to make it back to the Super Bowl. And you put hockey on the back burner, but anytime anyone asks you your favorite championship, unless I'm mistaken, it was the 2011 Boston Bruins title.
Yeah, no, you're mistaken. I love when people put words in my mouth, especially you. No, hardest championship to win.
Okay, well, I could find it.
Huge difference.
When's Raymond Pete joining? Ray Longo. Not coming.
Oh, we'll have Raymond Pete on and Ask Me Anything. I get my Ray Longo fill, incidentally, on the Anik and Florian podcast every week, but we do appreciate everybody who is checking this out. We're going to try to do these in advance of most of the UFC shows. So, but I know I was talking about Hawaii when we unsuccessfully tried to bring this thing over to Instagram Live for whatever reason. I see that go live button, but it does not want to cooperate. But so Max Holloway played the first hole with us, and then he was sort of bouncing around. But just to see the way these kids react to Max Holloway and to see sort of how quickly this came together, and shout out to his manager, Tim Simpson, just the way everybody sort of came together to sort of make this all happen. And Max is a pretty special individual, special family. And it was just cool to be a part of it. Hopefully they don't lose my number, because there are worse things than getting invited to play in a charity golf tournament in Hawaii on an annual basis.
So this next question is great. I don't necessarily love it, but I got to trigger it. At Mrs. K84LF, for $100 million with 6 months to prepare, could Jason switch spots with you and do a UFC pay-per-view without anyone noticing? Which broadcast partner is most and least likely to notice?
So it's not about money. And I remember as a kid, my parents were always flying me around to go watch Jay performing. He majored in musical theater. He's singing and tap dancing and jazz and all this stuff, and Macbeth and all these different challenging roles that he had, right? But not only is my voice and my pitch lower from 20 plus years of doing this and voicing video games and not using my diaphragm properly, but there's also, I think, a polish that comes with doing television for as long as I have. So 6 months to prepare with a great producer alongside every day. It's not about the $100 million. Would anyone notice? I think assuredly my broadcast partners would notice. Hopefully they would notice. If anyone could expedite the learning curve, and if anybody has followed my every move for a long time, it has been Jay. But I just think the notion that he's going to be able to somehow sort of step into that television world, even with all the financial resources in the world, I just don't see it. But I do think that he can be his own outstanding broadcaster in his own right. Look at this guy. He's like the more handsome version of me. Oh, and we lost Jay now. I don't hear you. Yeah. Okay. You can hear me. I can't hear you. All right. Again, anyone have any questions? Ankalaev and Guskov this weekend in Abu Dhabi. We're very excited about that. And then, of course, I'm coming correct with Serbia, Daniel Rodriguez, and Udos Medic. Megan O'Leary just went to interview Udos Medic, and he deserves this. And I think sometimes, people sort of take what I say through whatever tunnel or lens they're going to. Yeah, you work for the UFC. You're going to promote Udos Medic maybe more than the average Joe would, right? But if you listen to him on a mic, never mind the fact that he's knocking everybody clean out. And I've long said that it's not just Snoop Dogg that helped Sean O'Malley become a superstar, right? Sean's personality part of it, but just knocking dudes clean out. Alex Pineda, Sean O'Malley, Udos Medic. Look at the track record. And then he gets on a microphone and he's very thoughtful. He knows what he's going to say. He knows who to call out. There was a time where Udos Medic could have been cut by the UFC. You know what I mean? So I'm really happy that it's elevated to him to this extent. And yeah, just a lot of exciting Serbian talent. I'm excited about that show, obviously, because I'm working that show. But Abu Dhabi beckons this weekend. A lot of my colleagues are there or traveling there right now.
Sorry, bro. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what happened. Let's move on. Jon, I think you addressed this to some extent on a past show, but Jon, what's your most emotional moment you've seen while working for the UFC?
Gosh, I think they're all sort of emotional. For me personally, when Amanda Nunes came and kissed me on the forehead after her retirement fight, so to speak, that was very emotional for me, because I guess it just sort of, we're paid to humanize these athletes and tell their stories. And part of that is connecting with the athletes so that they trust you and respect you. And living in South Florida, I was able to connect with Amanda to a pretty significant extent. So I think that's probably the most emotional I've been, just sort of going back to my hotel room thinking, wow, even if she wasn't the greatest of all time, for a fighter in that moment to acknowledge you was particularly special. But a lot of different emotional moments and retirement moments, and certainly injury moments, knockout moments when fighters both produce them and are on the wrong side of them. I think if I was calling like Dominic Cruz against Marlon Chito Vera, as close as I am with Chito, I think that would have been a particularly emotional moment for me, seeing that happen to Dom, yeah, a lot of experience upon which I can draw. You're muted, I think. So I'll ask this one from JD McNugent. Now, if that's not just a handle, imagine walking up to a girl. Oh, what's your name? Erica? Hi, I'm JD McNugent. How has your note-taking evolved since back when you were in school? No shame in if you doodled like some of us. So I'm actually bemoaning the fact that I don't have my blank cards with me right now, because I do have the bios for Serbia and I could get crack-a-lackin' tonight. But so my note-taking, I think, has gotten a little bit quicker, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I've sacrificed much in penmanship. I think it's just with repetitions. But part of the reason why note-taking is more of a brain exercise than typing is because you're having to filter a little bit more slowly and maybe a little bit more intently and carefully what you're choosing to actually write down. So I guess my fighter card process has evolved. I try to leave more blank space going into the fighter meeting, because I remember when I would first start, I would go into the fighter meeting and I barely had room on the card for anything that they might actually say that was thoughtful in our fighter meeting. So that's part of the evolution. And I actually just came across a video on Instagram that suggests that if you start to doodle with one hand, your opposite hand, I believe, while you're trying to memorize copy, it can actually help with the memorization process. If a ref does not see a fight altering foul, hello. Yeah, I got you. If a ref does not see a fight altering foul in the moment, but replay shows it clearly, do you think they should be able to retroactively take a point? Yes. But I do believe that as long as they don't have the worst angle of all time, they should be able to determine intent in real time. But no, it's a good question. And I did love that Mark Goddard recently consulted the review official, as you would do, right, when there's a replay that deserves to be watched. It was a groin strike, and they tried to tell him, oh, it hit the side or whatever. And he's like, I'm not going to listen to that noise. I saw the cup move. It hit the cup. I saw the fighter's reaction. So, I just love Goddard. He's the gold standard. And I love the way he sort of will overrule the review official and be convicted in what he thinks he saw, and especially in that moment. Yeah, I can hear you testing your mic in the background, Jay.
Yeah, hook me up. Mike's trying to get me back in there, but you hear me, right?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, good. Well, hey, that's all you need is my voice, right?
You're way too fucking loud, though, honestly. Like, if I were a listener or viewer, I'd want to punch you. But
all right, is that better?
Much better. Much better. Much better.
I feel like this answer has evolved over time. What would John's walkout song?
Maybe Vinny Paz, End of Days, but probably Break Your Neck, Busta Rhymes. I'm really wondering why a fighter hasn't walked out to Break Your Neck by Busta Rhymes. I wonder if I could actually bribe a UFC fighter. Maybe we'll do it right now on this Jon Anik Ask Me Anything. All right, here's the deal. What? Is this okay if I do this? I can't hear you, Jay, but here's the deal. All right. I don't know what the monetary prize should be. Should it be $500? First fighter in the UFC. Or I guess I won't say first because maybe it's happened, but I don't believe it has. Next fighter to walk out to Busta Rhymes, Break Your Neck. You have $500. I shouldn't be bribing the roster, but can you imagine? I got to be there, though. I got to be there. It can't be like a fight night when I'm not there. I have to experience it in person. So next fighter to come out to Break Your Neck, Busta Rhymes, on a fight card on which I'm working, getting $500. I thought we are getting a Hall of Fame repack card. Can y'all give away those too? Yeah, we will. Absolutely. We'll be giving away those probably on the Anik and Florian podcast. I guess we can do some of that here, though. Yeah, we can give away next week. We'll give away a Homa Fight repack card that we have in house for sure. And we'll see what the inventory is. Maybe it'll even be an autograph card. But today, for our favorite question, we are giving away the Charles Oliveira UFC 300 fighter card that I generated for that particular fight, and the fight card that I used to call that fight.
I assume you cannot hear me now. Is
No,
that
I
accurate?
got you.
All right. Praise the Lord. Sorry for all the technical difficulties tonight, folks. I don't know exactly what's going on, but appreciate you being with us for the Ask Me Anything. Don't be afraid to subscribe. The best question asked tonight is getting the Charles Oliveira fighter card from UFC 300. Let me get you another question here, Johnny. You're going to be mad at that one.
Best Boston-based movie, and why is it The Departed or Fever Pitch? I've only seen Fever Pitch once. Didn't want to ruin it for the second time. Good Will Hunting might be the best Boston-based movie, even if that is a chalk pop culturally not appropriate answer. But yeah, I mean, you're coming to me with a movie question, coming to me with a movie question. You've watched the sport develop. What moment or moments in the last 10 years would you say have elevated the sport into the cultural and competitive institution that it is now? At Mark Mancini 9673. I joined the company in 2011. Ronda Rousey and Liz Carmouche fought in 2013. Conor McGregor made his UFC debut in 2013. He knocked out Jose Aldo in 2015. Brock Lesnar, UFC 100. Amanda Nunes. I mean, there are so many different seminal moments. I just listed a few of them. I think Conor McGregor's knockout of Jose Aldo was such a crazy, not just sport-altering moment in mixed martial arts, but I think a sport-altering moment across all of professional sports. So when I was asked this very thoughtful question by Mark, I think that's a moment that came to mind. I think a lot of people would point to Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner, but I think when you're talking about back-to-back-to-back television deals that the UFC has acquired, and make no mistake about it, whether I was a television announcer or not, everything is driven by live TV. Everything is driven by live sporting events, and when you can stack television deals, Fox, ESPN, CBS/Paramount Plus, back to back to back, the way the UFC has done it, I think it extends far beyond The Ultimate Fighter Season 1. I think you look at women in the sport and Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor and all of the great champions, Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira, and as I mentioned, UFC 100, John Jones, George St. Pierre, the Jones-Cormier rivalry. I could go on, but it's been a steady progression, and the stars just continue to walk through that door, whether people think that's the case or not. Paddy Pimblett right now. Look at Paddy Pimblett.
Right? So nobody hates technical difficulties more than John. Mike Jones in the back, not your fault, certainly on my end. But when this thing ends, the best content will be John ripping my ass. For
No.
tonight. Yeah, no question about it. No question about it. But anyway, next question. No, I don't want to let me fucking click it, Mikey. He doesn't even want to let me fucking click it.
You and any UFC fighter versus Bigfoot, who's by your side? So I assume this is not me and any UFC fighter against Antonio Bigfoot Silva. This is me and actually Bigfoot, right? So do you go Husamar Poliatis and hope that somehow he can break a limb on Bigfoot by just holding on and snapping a limb? And that maybe can render Bigfoot one-legged, right? Sergey Pavlovich, I mean, can he knock out Bigfoot? I think the obvious question would be to bring John Jones, Angry Johnny, with his meanness and his nasty prickness into a fight against Bigfoot. But I don't know. I think I either go Husamar Poliatis or Sergey Pavlovich.
Mike Jones, you're going to have to do it for me. There you go. Does the winner of Ankalaev Guskov get an interim or undisputed title shot?
Magomed Ankalaev's the forgotten man. You know, Bogdan Guskov obviously has the momentum, but I just think, as Ankalaev has said, sort of leading up to this, replacement opponent, anyone, anytime, anywhere. Certainly if he had beaten Khalil Roundtree Jr., he's in that championship mix. And why would he not be? He's the number one contender, essentially. He went 1-1 with Alex Pineda before Alex left the division. So, yeah. And I do think it stands to reason that Magomed Ankalaev is still favored to beat a lot of these guys, at least in terms of a betting line that's trying to command two-way action. So I like the guy. I love calling his fights. I'm really excited to watch him from afar and just be a fan this weekend. And yeah, we'll see what Bogdan Guskov, great fighter in his own right, has to say about all that. But yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, 205 is interesting right now.
What fight are you most excited for this weekend apart from the main event? And I'll quickly give you a little hint. Kenny picked Tamirov to beat Steve Erceg. Steve Erceg looked pretty good facing Tim Elliott last time out. But that's
I mean, I don't have the fight card in front of me, but that definitely the co-main event. I'm a big Steve Erceg fan. And when I called Steve Erceg's fight against Alexandre Pantoja, I actually thought he won the fight. I thought he was up 3-1 going into the fifth. And maybe upon rewatch, I thought Pantoja had it 3-2, but Steve Erceg got fast-tracked, and then he got humbled and set back a little bit, and then he responded in kind, and I don't know. You know, what's more likely, Steve Erceg to fight for the flyweight championship again or Drake May to get back to a Super Bowl? Honestly, Jay, I'm serious, though. Think about this, right? To say that it's a hot take that Drake May doesn't get back to a Super Bowl, it would be a hot take to say, I bet you in the next 10 years that Drake May gets back to a Super Bowl when you look at all of the elite quarterbacks that are out there. And for Steve Erceg to get back to a flyweight title fight, right? That division has a serious logjam right now. Now, obviously the NFL doesn't have a logjam. They start fresh every year, you know, but I mean, where does Brandon Royval factor into the equation? Because he's not getting a title fight next, you know. Pantoja is going to fight Joshua Van. What's going to happen with Tatsuro Taira? He's above Steve Erceg. You know, I think Erceg's good enough. He's committed enough. You can see his physique has evolved. I do think Steve Erceg is more likely to fight for the UFC flyweight title again than Drake May is to compete in a Super Bowl again. So there's my challenge to Drake May.
You know, the reason I said it was a hot take is because I'll tell you right now how difficult it would be for Drake May to get back to a Super Bowl. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you, what is he, 21 even? Did he even turn 21 yet? To say that he wouldn't get back there. I agree. I think it's, as you know, harder to get back there when you've lost it than when you've won it, in my opinion. So I'm with you. Mike, appreciate you queuing these up. Most difficult UFC fighter name to pronounce. That's a great question out of Cody Dean 1.
So on paper, the name Niem Jargol Tumen Dembarel is exactly how it looks, right? But when you first look at it, coming up next, Niem Jargol Tumen Dembarel faces Jason Anik. It's like, dude, really? You know, your parents with Tumen Dembarel as the surname, they're like, you know what, we're going to name you? Niem Jargol, right? Hopefully you don't become a professional athlete and people have to say, oh, nice jab by Tumen Dembarel.
Well, it gets easier the more well-known you get, but no matter how well-known or great Joanna is, you're like the only one that can pronounce that last name.
Well, Polish names are difficult, right? So we have some Polish fighters competing this weekend. Jan Blachowicz, in Serbia, Jan Blachowicz. Mateusz Raumbecki is a tough one. I'm just going through some of these names right now that I just had to pronounce. Milos Janicic. Did I pronounce that correctly, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, not surprised. Yeah, you crushed it. Not surprised.
But that's because I was, well, thank you. And I appreciate the assist earlier today. That's because I was practicing that one today. And we talk about this a lot. And I know Jay in particular is not like our segment on the Anik and Florian podcast, the pronunciation of the week. But if you practice these names, and nobody likes a 5-syllable name when you're calling out a jab. Oh, clean jab by Smith is a lot easier than, oh, clean jab by Tumen Dembarel. And you don't want to go nickname like clean jab by the flying fucking Wolverine. You know what I mean? Yep. So, but if you practice these names, part of the reason why we can realize success with them on Fight Night is because maybe you've said it 50 times before you show up there. And then it just sort of flies off the tongue like Mateusz Raumbecki or Niem Jargol Tumen Dembarel.
So before you answer this question, just quickly, appreciate y'all being with us live. Sorry for some of the technical difficulties earlier. So certainly worked those out. But the Anik Brothers YouTube channel, don't be afraid to subscribe there. Best question of the night is getting Jon's fighter card, the Charles Oliveira card from UFC 300. There is that. So appreciate y'all being with us. A few more questions here. Questions are starting to roll in, some good ones here.
All right, well, we can stick around now that we have some traction with these questions. Oh, Jay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, 170 yards out in the fairway. No wind to a slightly downhill, but soft green. What club you pulling out from the bag?
It's so interesting because I have gotten shorter as opposed to gotten longer because I'm really trying to swing slowly and do 3/4 back on the takeaway. So if you were to ask Daniel Cormier, what is Jon Anik like as a golfer? He'd be like, oh, he hits the ball a mile. And it's like, yeah, into the fucking woods. And he shoots 105 and he's a 30 handicap. You know what I mean? But length has never been an issue, if you know what I'm saying. So 170 yards out in the fairway. Jay, I guess I'm probably pulling out a 7-iron?
Yeah, you are. Jon hits the ball far. And, part of the reason DC thinks that, DC hits the ball nowhere, unless I'm mistaken, right? DC is not a long player.
Well, I mean, let's not denigrate Daniel Cormier's golf game. I mean, I did see him throw the ball on the green one time. Yeah, maybe he's not the longest guy off the tee, but, he's working at it.
No disrespect to DC, but, we played in this UFC basketball game a couple years back when Jamal Hill tore his Achilles, and DC was on a microphone a couple weeks later talking about the game he played. He didn't make a shot. Yet I just telling people he dropped 14 points. I gotta keep the former double champ Hall of Famer honest here. Good question there by Arc of Darkness. All right, a good one here from Dixon Insider. Jon, have you ever been approached by Topps to have your own UFC cards made of you as an official broadcaster? If not yet, would you be interested? Surely someone can make a call to make this happen.
That's the dream. Yeah, I've had a few cards. I think one Topps card, a Don Russ Panini card, if I'm not mistaken. But yes, I mean, I go to Urban Outfitters and I can't stop buying boxes of cards. So it would be thrilling. I think I did one card back in the day that was like the UFC's best fans or something. That was like, all right. But yeah, that would be amazing. Thanks for the question, Dixon.
Mike, hit that one about, there it is. Mike, we're on the same page. Harb ABD, taking my son to UFC 330, our first live UFC event. Jon, I know that warms your heart. You love seeing that. From a live atmosphere perspective, which fighters do we need to see live? Patty, Oliveira, Volk? I could even answer this motherfucker. Go ahead.
It's just so funny, right? Because in some respects, he answered the question for me, right? So seeing Patty Pimblett fight in Liverpool, I can't even imagine what type of scene that would be. Hopefully the barricades hold. But what I just experienced with him in Las Vegas, Jay, and you did obviously, and you didn't have to talk through it, right? I mean, Jay, can't you better speak to what that was like? And wouldn't you now, Jay, if you were a UFC fan, buy a ticket to go see Patty fight regardless of who else was on the card?
100%. And what I would say is even on his UFC debut, it felt the same way. He was the same authentic version of himself. And what I'll tell you is I could not wait for them to populate his face on the screen, right? I couldn't wait. I almost want, I almost want to ask the boys if they would go back and do it over again. I could not wait to see him make that walk. And then obviously Connor's walk was just, but it's really a great question.
Well, no, let me just, and also, yeah, like Charles Oliveira, I'm still starstruck around the guy. He walks into a fighter meeting, I get nervous. So, yes, the Charles Oliveira walk, how beloved he is. And Alexander Volkanovski, right? Men at work, down under.
Insane. But what I will say is going to a live UFC event, right? It doesn't even matter. For those that haven't been, Jon says all the time, there's 14 Super Bowls a year, the Super Bowl, and then the UFC pay-per-views or whatever your line is. But there's nothing like a UFC live event. And I like American football and basketball better than I like mixed martial arts. But there's nothing like being at a live UFC event. What I will say is proximity to the octagon sometimes influences this, but for me, certain light heavyweights, right? When Rakic faced Yuri Prohaska, if that was what I remember, and those two men go to face off, being able to do whatever they want, it's just unbelievable. But there really is nothing like the environment, and the UFC does a great job, very intentionally, at making that experience in the building matter as much as what people are seeing at home.
I just played in this golf tournament with Kyle Rudolph, who played tight end for the Minnesota Vikings for a long time in the NFL. And I think he's 6'6", maybe 225, 230 right now. But when, you see two guys in there who are 6'3", 6'4", fighting at light heavyweight, they put on the 20 pounds overnight. They're 225, 230 pounds with all of the mixed martial arts and weaponry in their arsenal. It's absolutely insane. And yeah, it's the greatest unpredictable theater in all of live sports. And I understand it's financially challenging, maybe more so than ever before. I understand the extent to which the UFC is a hot ticket. Oftentimes I give my tickets away to fans. I'm not able to do that as much as I was back in the day, as I've called the bigger shows. And I've had 7 people text me for my Philadelphia tickets. I get 2, so I'm 6 pairs short. But I would encourage anybody, if it's within your means, plan a vacation around a UFC live event, ideally a numbered event and title fights.
I was curious if Mike was going to populate the question where someone had an H in your first name. We know how you feel about that. It's Jonathan. Get rid of that H. Veniza MMA. Just kidding. We love you. Who is a prospect you're excited about that the casual fans might not know?
Well, I think a lot of the fans know Danny Sabatello. I'd like to see him in the UFC at some point in time. Pumi Nakuda, of course, with that weird result on Netflix. I don't know how that affects his UFC future necessarily. Ryan Burgos, Shane's younger brother, I think I would love to see in the UFC at some point in the future. And I do think there's some talent on the Serbia show, particularly one woman. I think Nina Milosevic, who could I know. I'm just. You can tell. You can tell. It's like this has been like fucking Serbia. Ask me anything. You can tell though that I've had a couple weeks off. I'm telling you though, this fucking Serbia card. Let's see. I got my script in the trash. Nina Milosevic is fighting. All hail Haley Cowan. Looking to turn Milosevic's dream debut into a nightmare. Enter the American Haley Cowan. Enter the fucking American Haley Cowan.
All right, a few more before we get out of here. Appreciate y'all being with us for this Ask Me Anything. Best question of the night gets the Charles Oliveira UFC 300 fighter card from Cole Zeman. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Joe Buck ain't going to a Tam Impala concert with his daughter. John is 1 of 1.
Cole gets the Charles Oliveira fighter card. Isn't that right? Tame Impala. I bought the loser t-shirt as well. I was wearing it with my daughter. Circle gets the square.
Wow. No, it's not even a question, and dude gets the Oliveira card. We'll see about that at the end. This isn't about MMA, but what's your favorite memory with Jason?
Right. It is interesting. I shouldn't give the fighter card away to the guy who compliments me and says John is 1 of 1.
Exactly.
He does get the card. He does get the card, though. Circle gets the fucking square. He does get the card, though. All right. So my favorite memory with Jay. So do you know what I'm going to say here?
Yeah, I mean, you might get creative, but there's an obvious answer.
All right. I won't go with the obvious answer.
The answer is obvious.
So we went and saw the final Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, Patriots Super Bowl in person, and they won the game. And then we drove from Atlanta back to South Florida afterwards over 9 hours, just screaming, fuck yeah, for 9 hours and just eating Big Macs or joints or I don't know which. But that was an amazing, amazing time. But I think about certain memories, that we only once dined and ditched, and it wasn't our fault. No, it wasn't our fault.
No.
It's like all the servers quit at Friendly's like mid-shift and nobody was bringing a check. And so we ran out of the restaurant. Rob Savage, you out there? You did it too, bro. You did it too. Shout out to Rob Savage. What a savage.
I barely remember that. I thought you were talking about some IHOP. We used to go to IHOP in high school after we got a little buckled. Did we not?
There were a lot of different, but we paid every time.
Right. No, that was what came to me.
No, all right. There were a lot of different memories, but, and I will say that even though Jay was acting and not playing on our high school basketball team, there were a lot of moments when we were 16 at overnight camp and Jay had a lot of big moments as a basketball player. And it was fun for me, who had been maybe the more prolific basketball player in our lifetime, watch him have that success. So shout out to Jay, who was a good basketball player for about 18 months of his life.
So I don't think Lazy Bed MMA with these first 5 words maybe gets that card, but as a fellow bald man, albeit not my choice. Okay. So at least he knows. What's your favorite brand of razor for shaving the dome piece? That's actually a really good question.
Yeah. So I'm all over the place. I mean, Andis, I like for sure. I'm trying to think about. I'm constantly trying out new clippers. Jay, I want to go get my clipper right now, real quick.
Do it. Do it. I'll take over now. You know, and forgive me, Lazy Bet MMA, because when you said fellow bald man, you know, I guess John doesn't look at himself as bald despite sort of shaving his head bald. So that's a really good
this
question.
Right now, this Baby Bliss Pro is what I use, and it is fantastic, you know, and just pop this out and charge it when I get home from the road. And I shave my head every 2 or 3 days with this, you know, and I wish a motherfucker would, you know, come up on me on a day I shave my head. Honestly, on a day I shave my head when I feel tough, right? The Baby Bliss Pro, you know, I wish a motherfucker would, honestly.
You always wish a motherfucker would, right? That's why you got a knife pulled on you like a month after moving to a very safe Connecticut community.
That was not my fault. That was not my fault that he pulled a knife on me.
All right, another good one here. You remember Manny being
unscathed, though, incidentally.
Right, of course. So you remember sort of Manny being Manny. I wanted you to keep that in mind with this next question. Who's the Manny Ramirez of the UFC, past or present? Give it some thought.
Jason Mayhem Miller? I don't know. No, he wasn't good enough. He wasn't good enough.
Exactly. You got to think of an elite fighter, and you can give yourself some time on this that maybe a little quirky. I mean, Josh Hokett comes to mind at the moment.
So Manny Ramirez, if you don't know, World Series champion more than once, right? With the Red Sox twice, I believe.
Yep.
But one of the sweetest swings you've ever seen. So I was thinking maybe Chuck Liddell, right? But there are some parallels and comps that just aren't there. So Manny Ramirez of the UFC. Oh man, I thought about Robert Whitaker a little bit, but I got to say Chuck Liddell just because that home run swing.
Yeah. All right, couple more before we get out of here, and I am looking through this list to find our winner. Unless you're going to give it to the guy that greased you, JD McNugent. I like that name. Do you ever practice broadcasting while watching other events? Maybe a basketball game or horse race, even a streaker on the field?
So, yeah, I mean, there have been times where I muted an American football game and I called plays back in the day, but I didn't do that a lot. I just sort of used whatever repetitions I was getting within sports broadcasting, whether it was doing a radio update or hosting a radio show or on a TV desk, whatever it was. I tried to use those repetitions to sort of help me and help form my play-by-play style. It's a really thoughtful question. I don't think I ever did it with a basketball game. Certainly for fun, right? We've definitely done it for fun with calling 3-pointers and dunks and horse racing and down the stretch they come and all of those things, but never like actually trying to practice the craft consistently. Do it that way.
Before I get to this question, what I'll say, JD, but you know, all fans sit at home with all the thoughts in their heads that they would say if they were broadcasting, as they want to sort of criticize, because everybody can do the job until you realize how difficult it is when you actually crack the microphone. All right, Baral, 8941. Which UFC fighter would have the best movie based on their lives?
Well, Francis Ngannou is no longer in the UFC, but his story is just absolutely incredible. But I think really what sets the UFC apart, I think, in the eyes of a lot of fans, is just how unique fighter to fighter their individual stories are. And in a broad sense, how hardened our athletes are by experiences in their lives during those formative years. So I really feel like you could go fighter by fighter, you know, Leon Edwards. And, you know, I think a lot of the athletes, I think, you know, Ateba Gautier, I'm going to the Cameroonians, you know what I mean? But I just think people don't necessarily understand what type of, you know, situation some of these athletes arise from to become great. And it's just the opposite of being spoon-fed anything. So,
you know, I was going to say one or two more. The questions just keep getting great here. The one from Spaffron, 4285, Mike Jones, if you can find that one. The over-under for D-Rod. You can take a peek at that one there. It was there. 1 ounce of weed in D-Rod's bag going to Serbia. I love me some fucking D-Rod, but it's a great question. That's in the running for the Charles Oliveira fighter card.
Maybe the best question of the day. I would say that it's the easiest question of the day to answer. we go under an ounce for D-Rod en route to Serbia. I think at this point in time, maybe lesson learned, maybe not. I do look forward to the fighter meeting. But if D-Rod, if you're watching and somehow you are able to get cannabis into Serbia, 508 3.
Leave it. Yeah, see, there you go. All right. Final question, I think, of the night, Johnny.
We can do a few more.
All right. Hey, we
Depends
appreciate
on Mike Jones.
Barry, the 6,000th to John. This is beautiful. So what happened about during the moment where you got genuinely angry at the snap, crackle, pop sound with Ray Longo and Ken Flo? Also, can you shout out my friend Sleepy KV? Well, there's the shout. Go ahead.
Sleepy KV, Sleepy Kev, whatever your name is. Shout out to Sleepy KV. So when I think back to a technical difficulty moment that I snapped in, right? Isn't it sort of, haven't there been a lot of those?
There have. I think
yeah, no, I mean, Longo's got the dog barking. It's episode fucking 665, very frustrating. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm trying to keep it clean, especially because a lot of people listen to the Anik and Florian podcast and they aren't necessarily watching it on YouTube. They're listening to the show. So you want the audio to be perfect. So all of a sudden Ray's, clearing his throat. Let me clear my throat. Dog barking, fucking Wi-Fi cutting out. It's like, do you have any respect for the listenership?
So we're giving away the Charles Oliveira fighter card tonight from UFC 300. Dude, I got the Max Holloway one from 300 here. Flatlining.
You can give the Max Holloway UFC 300 one to the guy who asked about D-Rod's weed to Serbia. Okay.
Wow.
We'll do two tonight. And then,
this card away, Max Holloway from UFC 300. You're giving this away tonight. I was
to the guy who,
yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Who gets this one?
Appreciate people being here early and often. I got a whole library of fighter cards. Yes.
Who gets this one for UFC 300? Which question was that?
UFC 300 Max Holloway. It's the dude who asked about how much weed Daniel Rodriguez was going to try to smuggle into Serbia.
All right. So I think we got to find the winner for that Charles Oliveira.
Okay. Well, we can do that later. But for now, thanks everybody for being here.
Before we get out of here, we're letting him know. Before we get out of here, we're letting him know.
His name was Caleb or something.
Which question was it? Was it the compliment? Is he getting it?
Yes.
All right. So the guy that complimented John's shirt and simultaneously attacked Joe Buck, you are the winner of the Charles Oliveira fighter card. Well, no, right? So Joe Buck would never go to the concert, but you would, right? So
Joe Buck's a great dad. Joe Buck's a great dad.
But Mike, if you get a chance to populate that question on our screen, we would appreciate it so I can see that handle. But you got to direct message me on Instagram at Boston Anik. We will communicate. Should be fun. I will get your address. I will get this out to you immediately. And also, dude who talked about D-Rod's herbal refreshments, hit me up as well at Boston Anik, and I will get the Holloway card out to you. Don't be afraid to subscribe. Anik Bros YouTube channel. We got a lot of stuff behind the scenes coming as well. Some behind the scenes stuff with John and Dominic Cruz coming out probably sometime later this week. Anything else from you, John, before we get?
We appreciate everybody supporting the Anik Bros YouTube channel. We will be doing an Ask Me Anything live from Serbia, I believe on the eve of UFC Fight Night, Rodriguez versus Medic. So hopefully people will be locked into that and get your questions in. And we'll be doing a giveaway on most of these, either fighter cards or some of those repacks from Collectibles Home of Fight as well. So thanks everybody for chiming in. Keep the questions coming. Tell your friends, tell your mom. And, hope everybody has a great day and a better evening. Anything else, Jay Bird?
No, we appreciate you all being with us. Thanks for hanging in with some of the early bumps. We'll see you next week. Much love, baby.